Death, it's something that we all face at some point in our life. It's also a theme used in a lot of stories. It's a plot point used in most mediums. The player, viewer, or the reader becomes invested in characters throughout their time in the world that the authors are trying to sell to make you feel something, so that they can use death as a means to play on your emotions, so it's a story that you're not going to forget. Halo, much like any other medium or story, is definitely no stranger to this. Of course, death surrounds literally every corner of the franchise, from Echo 419 in Combat Evolved to Sergeant Johnson, or even every single grunt you've slaughtered in your journey to stop the Covenant. With that in mind, Halo Infinite will most likely have deaths to grab the player, considering that none of the cast actually ended up dying in Halo 5. So in today's video on Ultimate Halo, we're going to explore who might die in Halo Infinite, who the most likely candidates are, why they might die, and what effect this will not only have on the characters, but the universe as a whole.
Ultimate Halo.
Hey up lads, Fletch here from Ultimate Halo, and please support my journey to Halo Infinite by liking and subscribing. It only takes a second. I'm trying to do this as a job, and your support would mean the genuine world to me. Also, leave a comment down below with a gamer tag with who you might think will die and why. I have unclaimed Halo Master Chief Collection codes on both the PC and the Xbox from the previous video where the winners never got back to me. So this is your chance to win. Let me know who will die down below, and I'll DM you on Xbox Live if you win. At this stage in Halo Infinite's development, we don't know who the full cast is going to be in the story, so we're going to take some educated guesses and assumptions as to who this might be. And please note, this is all just speculation, and it's just me trying to make some educated guesses. And why am I doing this video? Well, just for fun. So first and foremost, Chief is the obvious candidate. I feel like when it comes to every single Halo game, he's always in the firing line for, are we going to get to see his face for the first time, or is the Master Chief going to die? We all know that the unnamed pilot Brohammer is going to play a part in the plot and will most likely be assisting Chief throughout his journey, I suspect in a way that Echo 419 did. Dr. Halsey will most likely take a part in my opinion. She's already pretty beaten considering she lost her arm in Halo 4 Spartan Ops. Chief and her will work pretty closely together, I assume. Cortana is obviously going to be involved considering that she's the main villain now. Lasky potentially. Spartan Palmer, and Locke potentially. I doubt that they'd scrap him, but as for Blue Team and the rest of Fireteam Osiris, I'd say they're quite unlikely with the way that things are going. They're some of the core characters, but I'll bring up more as I see them fit and if they fit into the narrative. But first of all, Dr. Halsey is a pretty big candidate from me. From the ending of Halo 5, when she's back with Chief, I imagine that it was a hugely emotional moment for her, and she even admitted it was a mistake when calling him by his first name, John, when they first met when he was a child, as she did end up having a level of motherly affection for him, and as somebody who likes to show herself as a cold, hard scientist of truth, facts and reason, I'm pretty sure that she doesn't want to actually show this side too often. In terms of the dynamic between her and Chief, I think it's possible she'll serve someone who can help rationalise Chief throughout his story. We all should know at this stage that Cortana is a clone of Dr. Halsey's brain, but the Cortana in Halo 5 isn't necessarily the same one that we know. It could either be a fragmented matrix or she's infected by the logic plague. You can watch 1,000,001 Hidden Xperia videos if you want to know more about that. As such, Dr. Halsey may need to remind Chief throughout the game who she really is, and which might be difficult for him to come to grips with. From there, in terms of the possible death, I think it's potential she might have some involvement in taking Cortana down, and it could almost bring things full circle and she might die as a result of it, which is quite fitting in my opinion. I do think this death would hit Chief pretty hard. After all, it's his mother figure and his best friend is Cortana. No, I don't think they're in love, that's just weird. And both of them going at one time would probably make him feel pretty lost. It'd be a great time to show that, considering we didn't see much of his emotion and anguish in Halo 5. Although with that in mind, seeing Blue Team help him and come back into the picture might remind him that he's not alone and he's got his best friends and his brothers and sisters by his side too. Next up, Master Chief, die. You know what, at this stage, I know that 343 want to bring a level of fan service and legacy back to Halo Infinite, but I know that they're not scared to take risks, and killing Chief would be the bloody biggest one you could ever try. I think it's a potential, but to kill Chief off we need to remember and consider a few things. Who will replace him in the franchise? How will the core character sets react? And how do you convey this emotion to the player? For this I'm going to flash back to Halo 3, the tribute scene at the end of the game where Lord Hood holds a memorial for those who had fallen. What made this so impactful wasn't the fact that you didn't know or how Chief died, but instead it was the reactions of those around him. Lord Hood and the Arbiter paid tribute at the end, and if you just listen to their conversation, it shows how meaningful of a character he was to all of the cast around him.
I remember how this war started, what your kind did to mine. I can't forgive you, but you have my thanks for standing by him to the end. Hard to believe he's dead.
Were it so easy.
So now that you've sat back and you've watched that clip, one thing that always strikes out in my mind, and I hope it does to you as well, is that their emotions reflect how we felt at that time. The Chief was gone, it's a pretty hard pill to swallow, it still kind of gets me to this day even though I know he's alive, but we were thankful for the journey we had been on. It's a beautiful scene in my opinion, probably one of the most beautiful in the franchise, so I'm not saying that Infinite needs to mimic this as such, we don't need to copy all the things, but instead consider how other characters react. Let's say Spartan Locke is in the game. If there's sufficient development between the two characters, showing Locke and the emotion he would show of regret that he couldn't help him may pay a price emotionally on him. What if Cortana killed him? Even though she's evil now, she still shows she cares. It might have enough of an emotional bearing on her that she completely loses it and breaks down. Or, let's say if Halsey doesn't die, it could really show that some grief and sadness due to her almost losing her son. It's important when killing such a huge character that the surrounding cast show their reaction, and the players can draw their own parallels between themselves and the cast on the screen, and for that moment put themselves in those characters' shoes. Now of course this could literally apply to any character in the franchise. Who knows, let's say Brohammer could follow in Echo 419's footsteps, trying to die and save the Chief. We all see that the Chief gave him hope, perhaps turning the tables so Brohammer sacrifices himself or dies for Chief to allow him to save the day might be a great progression arc for that character. It shows then that it's not just Chief who gives hope to the universe, but instead it's all of the men and the women fighting tirelessly to stop the destruction of the galaxy. Now in terms of the main cast, I think a big person for me whose character arc should probably come to an end some point soon is maybe Captain Lasky. I do really like him as a character, and I think he's shown some great sacrifices over the years, and he's someone who thinks heavily on his actions and pursues the right thing even though it might be denying orders. In that example I always think back to how he took over the Infinity in Halo 4 and then he gave the Chief that pelican. He said he was going to use it to go find Chief, but instead he was giving it to him because he believed in Master Chief's cause and he was doing the right thing. Another example is on Halo 5, where on board the Infinity, where he allows Fireteam Osiris to go to St. Helios despite there is a ban in doing so. He's proven time and time again he's willing to do what's right for the greater cause. So at this point I ask, why kill him? One of my main concerns with Lasky is that he might become a bit of a forgotten character in the franchise character arc if he doesn't have some sort of finale or ending. As such, killing him off might be the right thing to do for him so he has some sort of sacrifice in a fitting form for his character. When looking back at Sergeant Johnson dying for example, yes it was sad and I was bummed out when it did happen, but Chief didn't really convey much emotion. It was more Johnson in the moment who led the player. After that it was pretty much dropped and we see a picture of him towards the end, but that's kind of it until you see him in the memorial in the epilogue. And when you also think back to Halo 4 Forward Unto Dawn, the live action series that I think was great in my opinion, but Chief helped save Lasky when he was a young kid. Now maybe bringing it all full circle with that as well, Lasky saving the Chief, I think is a great idea. And maybe, I'm not saying kill characters for the sake of killing characters, and I would never say that for anyone, but I think it's a good idea in my opinion. Lastly, one of the main characters I do think could die is the Arbiter. There's almost something poetic about him and Chief being reunited after thinking the other was lost and dead, then only for them to be reunited and for the other to pass away. The relationship between Chief and the Arbiter is so unique, and it's hard to properly explain to those who don't know the story of Halo. And in all honesty, even the Arbiter kind of articulates that at the start of Halo 2 Anniversary. Then at the same time, I wouldn't exactly say they're like brothers, obviously they're too different to be like that, but no matter what the Gravemind says, I don't believe that at all.
But this ring will make us brothers.
But instead, there's a bond, and it's very strong, and it's built out of mutual respect for each other. They've both been at war with each other so long, but ultimately couldn't have survived the war regardless of each other's help in the end. It's clear in Halo 5 that the Arbiter thinks highly of the Chief, so it's possible that he's a candidate, and I think the impact in terms of Sangheili would be huge, as well as the Chief. I'd love for them to fight together one last time and ultimately see their last battle to protect the universe once more against the Created. At the end of the day, I think we can all expect some level of death. Halo 5 didn't really have any, which is good and bad because you don't want death just for death's sake, but at the same time, you don't want the player to feel like they've not lost anything. But at the end of it all, that's just me exploring some options, and of course, I know that all of these won't happen. 343 would have to be off their rocker if they were to kill off this many characters. It would literally kill the franchise. So I want you to let me know in the comment section down below, who do you think is going to be killed off in Halo Infinite and why? Thank you so much for tuning into my channel. Your support means everything. If you could subscribe, that would help out tremendously. And don't forget to let me know who will die in the comments with your gamer tag so you can win. My name is Jack Fletcher, and I will see you next time on the one and the only Ultimate Halo.
Subscribe now to Ultimate Halo for more unfriggin' believable Halo content.